What's up, everyone? Welcome to Monday's show. Today we are talking about the dangers of training with poor technique. This is something that we deal with a lot at Unity Gym. We get people coming in to the gym that, talk about being able to do 10 pull-ups or body weight and a half squats, and they're just not ready for it.
What's up, everyone? Around the table we got Rad, Phil, and myself, Yani Bullmeister, if we haven't met. Behind the camera we got Richie. We are Unity Gym and the Unify Movement System, where we teach driven people to become strong, flexible and athletic. How is everyone this fine Monday morning?
Great.
Yeah, doing good. Yeah.
Doing good?
Happy Monday.
Man, bit sad that my Physio Monday is being derailed once again, but that's okay.
This is
it is quite relevant. So no, I think it's
Physio Monday topic. We can answer injury questions today.
No. It's a really great topic. I'm totally on board. But
yeah,
for all those Physio Monday lovers out there, I know the fans are.
Well, this is like almost like a prehab Monday. This one, isn't it?
Totally.
Because it's one of the biggest causes of injury is that people tried to build strength before focusing on quality of movement.
With a poor foundation.
Yeah, with a poor foundation. Yeah. And so you get strong at doing the wrong thing, and it doesn't. I mean, like squats are a good example. Deadlifts, people just
and it's not only prehab. A lot, like most of the time when people come and see me in person, what we look at is how they're doing the movements, and as much as possible, I'm always trying to keep people doing the kind of training that they love, which generally is the interesting stuff we do in the gym, rather than you kind of lie on the floor and activate your whatevers.
Well, this is
so, and often just a small technique cue can really make people feel better while they're doing the movement.
And this is exactly why I wanted to do this show. We had a conversation on Friday that really ignited a light globe for me, which was, that you spend the majority of your time in a physio consultation very differently to what most physio consults are remembered or framed like, which is usually you lay down on a bed and they fumble around doing little manipulations and things like that on your body to realign your body. And I just love the direction that you've taken your physio in general. Once you have a consultation and get a history from the person, you're out on the gym floor and you're correcting their technique and giving them actionable, executionable steps that sort of solve so many problems. And
just to be clear, I'm not doing anything rogue here. Like, that is what is taught now, the biopsychosocial approach to healthcare, which is that very much the 100% the goal has to be to keep the person able to do things and give the power to the patient. But the way that the incentives work in healthcare often is just skews treatment towards disempowering patients and kind of convincing them to come back for things because that makes money. So
that's exactly
I'm just trying to do exactly what I'm taught.
Now there's the other. I'm just trying to find it. Who was it that went and had the screening, the body screening?
Yes,
Jada last week. And what's the
kinesiology?
Kinesiology screening. And they were like, oh well, there's not much you can do. And she wrote a comment on the weekend, which I've answered, which was, here's the feedback that I got, which was a screen of her entire body, and everything is pretty much good, except there was one little area of the glute that was red.
So it had red, orange, red, yellow, and green.
Yeah.
And gave percentages for each of the body parts, which I did mean to ask Jada, what did they do? Was it an external scan, or was it movement testing?
I think they do movement testing. I've been to a kinesiologist once before because I got talked into it by my father, who went and was just raving about it and thought, oh my God, you've got to align yourself with these people. And they did a series of resistance tests with different with your limbs and movements and things like that to see how your body was moving. And I don't want to sit here and bag out any practitioners or anything, so I'm not going to go there. But
I'll do it for you.
But the feedback she got was that everything was functioning really well, but there was an area of limitation or weakness, which first and foremost I want to point out that. And she was saying, "What can I do to fix that spot?" My answer was nothing. Ignore it, because you're doing exactly what you should be doing. You're doing really great unilateral exercises that are going to help balance your body, and if you just keep going in the direction you're going, it'll usually sort itself out, you know. And she said, yeah, that's kind of what they said. They said there's not really any feedback we can give you. You tested better than most people, you know. Now, by
it
nature,
just amazes me that, like, you know, but then you get a chart and numbers and like a red color and set, like, the word used was severe in the report, and it's just amazing how that, like, she's had such an amazing result from, you know, everything she's been doing, and then that becomes the thing that you end up getting focused on. And I just hate that, like,
that's it. And look, I'll be completely transparent here. All assessments, like even our UMS structural balance blueprint, it's an assessment that's designed by nature to find a fault and then give you, but the thing is, we give you a feedback where, okay, that's your, out of everything you tested, that's the area you're going to, of greatest opportunity or potential to strengthen. So do that movement in the next program and you're going to get better, you know. These things I dislike because what they're designed to do is fault you without giving you any. So my theory is, if you're going to assess someone, you better have a fucking good way of telling them how to fix that problem. And it shouldn't be, you got to come back and have another treatment over and over and over again. It should be, here's exactly what you need to do to go and solve it. I got my wrist slapped many years ago by one of my mentors for over assessing people. And he said, well, what do you do once you get all that data? Oh, I give them a report. And he said, and then what? You know, like, what's the point of giving someone a report that makes them feel like disempowered and crap? So anyway, not having a dig at their assessment. I don't know what their procedures are following up on the report, but by nature, these types of assessments are designed to fault you, and you want to be really careful how much you buy into them, because, you know, if they're not giving you a really easy, practical, actionable solution, then their solution is come back and see us again and we'll retest you, or we'll give you some of this treatment or that treatment or whatever else. And that's what physio dislikes about, that's what Phil dislikes about these industries, and that's what we all sort of dislike about them. But anyway, that's not the reason why I brought it up. The reason why I brought it up is because I love the new approach, which is get out on the gym floor, assess movement, and the fix, the solution is just usually a few cues. It's a few simple cues to get your form and technique sorted out, and guess what usually happens? You just continue doing the exercises and the problems go away.
That's step two. The first is to have a look at their larger training programs. So you're going to look at, like, macro and micro loading again. So macro loading is all the stuff we've talked about before with programming principles, because that's often when people screw up.
Yep.
People who are part of the gym, it's usually technique stuff, because macro loading is sorted. You just do what you're told, and that gives you a perfect sort of split between the different muscle groups. But it's the micro loading that is much harder, especially in a group training situation where you've got so many people and different skill levels. It often is just like and what I mean by micro loading, it is like when you're doing an exercise, depending on how you do that exercise will use certain body parts more than others. So a good example of this is with a squat. If your knees travel forward over your toes more, it's going to be more of your quads. If your back weight onto your heels and your hips going back, it's going to be more of your glutes and hamstrings. So that's a way you can see how the loading has changed. It's still a squat, so but it's now more quad or more hamstring and glute dominant. So that's just an idea of what micro loading is. And so that becomes like the kind of next level down. So once you've done the macro loading of programming principles, then it's like, okay, what's happening here?
So just very quickly for everyone playing at home, macro loading is how many sets you do, how many reps you do, how many times you come to the gym, how many times you repeat the same body parts in a week, in a month, all of that sort of program periodization stuff that we're talking about all the time, how much weight or load, how much you allow your body to go to failure or overload the body, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Once you've got all that dialed in, now we're looking at where's the load distributed in your body based on your anatomy, your length, tension, which is strength and flexibility, all of those little things. And this is like, I can't stress this enough. I cannot stress this enough. Most people are told, oh, don't exercise, don't do this, don't do that movement. Oh God, don't squat. Squats are very dangerous. Don't deadlift, for God's sake. Deadlifts are awful, But it's really, it's really more about that micro loading principle, and both the macro and micro loading principle, and the as what Jada got told on the weekend by myself and I think her physical therapists. is just keep doing what you're doing. It's doing a fantastic job. Don't get hung up on that little red spot, just learn to do the movements properly, and the body is an amazingly impressive thing, and it will distribute the load how it needs to.
Yeah, but that's Jada who's been working with us for months now and who's been watching videos and getting cued on how to do things the right way. If you go to the other end of the spectrum, often that's not the solution. Like there was a guy that came into the gym this morning and he's been doing CrossFit for long enough that when I showed him the workout, today's workout, a bent arm strength vertical push pull, and so he was doing a dumbbell shoulder press and pull-ups, and I showed him how to manage his load on pull-ups, and he got straight up on the rings and started doing bodyweight pull-ups, and he was doing sets of 8, but he didn't do one single rep where he could depress his scapula. He had no awareness of it at all. And when I started explaining to him how important that is to develop that and the dangers of not doing it, he got the very, very, very typical CrossFitters look on his face, which is I'm not regressing. I'm not regressing my move. I can do muscle ups and WODs, and he started telling me about like when do I start doing muscle ups, and I normally do handstand push ups in my workout. When should I do that? And like that's something that we see so often from people that have gone to a competitive mindset style of group training, where they train with a lot of people in a competitive sort of a way, and they haven't ever really had movements, like especially upper body shoulder movements where scapular control is a part of it. They've never had it stripped back to the basics and been explained the critical importance of developing the right movement sequencing. And if we talk about the pull-up, because we have had a lot of people ask questions about pull-ups since we launched the pull-up masterclass on Friday. And why do they, we've even had people starting to post videos of their pull-ups now saying, hey, there's a lot of talk of pull-ups, can I have a look at them? And there was this dude that just posted his pull-up in the Movement Mastermind that's been doing the Foundations program, and it looked amazing. He had such good scapular control. He was asking if it was a good pull-up or not. But if you don't get this stuff right and then you go into a competitive mindset with your training, where your reasons for training are to try to match the amount of pull-ups that the person next to you is doing, rather than thinking about what's the best thing that I need to be focusing on, that's dangerous, because you not only do you develop a bad movement pattern, but you develop this ego, which I saw this morning, which is this challenge of, well, no, I'm not regressing my movement. I can do 8 pull-ups. Why would I regress it? And you're like, oh man, why would you not do it? Because you can really overload your body.
That's what I want to dive deep into today. So let's talk about why.
We'll talk about James then. Talk about your experience with James. James is an ex-member of ours who he trained with me at Fitness First over 7 years ago, and he is one of the fittest, strongest, most competitive people you'll ever meet. He placed in the top 8 or something in the Spartan race in Sydney, which
he either won it or came second 2 years in a row.
Yeah, 2 years. Okay, so he came in the he got a podium place.
He was
in
a
the Spartan,
very competitive. What are those races called?
They're like the Tough Mudder. It's like that type of thing. If you know that
whole group of their different courses or different
obstacle
challenges.
courses.
I think they're obstacle course races.
Yeah. They're can't believe they're thousands of people that go in them. So and they're competitive people that go in them.
Yeah. The people that come in the top 100 are usually pretty fit.
Yeah. So to get a podium place, to get first, second, or third, you are like at an elite level.
He also competed at an elite level in CrossFit for 4 years.
Yeah.
He was very competitive in CrossFit.
Yeah. But when he trained with us, immediately we uncover these imbalances in his body. Like we get him to start doing some movements that he immediately starts going, oh man, I get a lot of shoulder pain when I do that. Well, let's just frame it properly.
He had to quit CrossFit because he experienced quite an extreme case of forearm tendinopathy, golfer's elbow, and which is the medial epicondyle inflammation. And he...
inflammation.
What's that?
Not inflammation.
Sorry. Whatever it is. Tendinopathy. And so he had to, unfortunately, he got to a point where he couldn't even hold on to a bar. So he couldn't do kipping pull-ups, butterfly pull-ups, anything like that, which once you get to that point, you're kind of out of being able to compete in CrossFit,
Yeah.
And when he came to us, he was fearful of... we do a lot of hanging, we do a lot of bar decompression work, we do a lot of pull-ups, And he was quite fearful of that, and so I referred him to a colleague of mine who is a fairly smart guy, one of my mentors, Tony Battaji, and he was getting, I just wanted someone to look at him who I trusted, who could give me some feedback on programming principles for him, and he treated him with a little bit of ART, and he identified that he had really, just over his life of competing in CrossFit, he had developed a pretty lazy technique in doing pull-ups, because they do kipping, and so you don't have to initiate the movement in the shoulder when you're doing a CrossFit style pull-up. You initiate the movement in your feet, basically, in the rest of your body, and what had sort of happened was that he had started to really overload his forearms, because he'd lost that synergy in the shoulder and the elbow joint, which we talked about a little bit last week. And Tony sort of put it quite bluntly. He said, you got to understand the forearms are overloaded heavily in just everyday life, in going to the gym. Even on a leg day, you're loading the bar with your hands, you're gripping, you're lifting up weight plates, you're constantly using your gripping muscles, and
deadlifts as well.
Deadlifts, everything, and in James's case, doing adventure races, he thought that was going to be something that would give him some rest from the overload of the CrossFit, but he's still carrying his weight on monkey bars, climbing up ropes, all this sort of stuff, which was still really problematic. And so rather than, Tony did quite a lot of ART on the forearms, elbows, triceps, but he said, look, the thing that's going to solve his problem the most is to relearn how to do pull-ups, relearn how to control his scapula properly, get some movement in there, get that strength up, get his bench press more solid with his scapula set, all those little things that we teach in our foundations program. And guess what? It fixed his problem, and so
just an example of that with so when you think about forearm tendinopathy, we talked about it so much on this show over the last year, but it is a loading issue. So basically with tendinopathy, it's all about trying to get the right amount of load to then build up the capacity in that structure. So like if you're already doing smart training principles, so you've got the right kind of spread out between days, like it could just be that you change the technique a little bit to make it more of a shoulder dominant movement, take a little bit off the elbow flexors and a bit off the forearms. And even though you've not changed the amount of times you're training through the week or your sets and reps, now because of that micro loading, that's changed the total loading for your forearms, and that can be enough just to get you over the line. So that's why it is so important to understand all the different ways in which load is expressed on a system.
Richie, sorry, just before you go on, can you scroll down the UMS Movement Mastermind to September 19th, Stephen Pellegrino, and just get ready to bring that video up so we can show people what we're talking about with the pull-up, because it is it is a nice example of initiating the movement with scapular depression and good scapular control, and then you keep going, Rad.
Yeah, well, I mean, so, there's the injury side of it, which is a really important thing that you need to be aware of. And then there's also the where do you want to go with your training kind of a thing. And every movement, if it's done properly, like when you follow a progressive program like the UMS, where we have progressions, where you work on this progression and then you work on that progression, then you work on that progression, and if you're not ready for that, or if it's starting to overload you, you just regress a little bit. Everything builds on itself. There's nothing that's isolated that's on its own. So if you don't really nail this, like the scapular control in a pull-up, then a muscle-up is going to be very, very hard for you to learn, and it will be. That's when you're going to even put more load into the forearms, but like even people that are conditioned well, when they go to doing muscle-ups, we get the first thing people say is after a week or two is, "Man, I'm really feeling it in my forearms." And you're like, you've got to watch that. You've got to manage the load, and you don't stop. The answer is not no. Let's just stop and not do it. But if you haven't learned how to control your scapula properly, then those risks are just exponentially increased.
Sorry, have you finished? No. Keep going. I just want to point out something that's really important, because I don't want people today to feel like we're having a dig at CrossFitters, but I want to point out the problem I have with things like CrossFit or CrossFit in general, which is that CrossFit brought a level of competition into everyday training. And I want to make it absolutely clear. When you compete in a competition, I've competed in boxing, rugby league, and soccer at quite high levels. Competition by nature can get messy. you push to the limit, and you usually sacrifice a lot to win. You sacrifice whatever it takes to win. And often that means you sacrifice a bit of perfect form and technique, you know. But you don't do that when you train. When you train, you dial in everything, and training should be done perfectly. Training should be a repetitious version of what your competition would look like in a perfect environment, so that when you go and compete, if you go outside of those parameters, it's okay. Your body is so dialed in that usually it will be minimalized how much you stuff the form and technique up. But if you do stuff it up a bit, it's not going to hurt you most likely, or you're less likely to hurt yourself. The problem with CrossFit is that it brought that competition into everyday training for a lot of people. And a lot of people got it a little bit confused, I think, because a lot of the elite level CrossFitters, they don't train the way they compete. They train under methodical environments where they've got proper loading variables controlled. It looks very different, you know. In my understanding, it is very different to the competition. The competition is one thing. Their training regime every day is different, you know. And this is where I had a real problem with CrossFit when it first got popular. The popular thing was the competition, and then a lot of CrossFit boxers and coaches that didn't really understand what they were doing could go out and get certified in CrossFit and then teach the competition, which is the fun, energetic thing, on a daily basis to people. And when you do that sloppy shit every day, you end up with, you know, really messing yourself up, you know. But when you watch an NFL team play, I mean, NFL's probably a bad example because they're so methodical about their plays and getting things right that their game day actually looks quite methodically like their training. Rugby league, boxing, any competition, your competition day doesn't look like your training day, you know. It's very, very different, and you go outside of the realms of, you know, powerlifting's another good example. In powerlifting, you know, they don't max out every day that they train, you know. It's very rare that powerlifters do 1 RMs, you know. Anyway. Yeah. The top guys, you know, they're not always doing 1 RMs. They're not always testing their 1 RM. They only do that in competition, you know. And so do Olympic lifters and weight, you know, like it's much more methodical. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to point that out. Like, you got when you got guys like who you had come into the gym today, and when we talk about this elite level of competition versus training, there's a very big difference, and you got to treat it differently. And that's why we're so methodical about getting these little things right when you're training, because if you do it day in, day out incorrectly, you run into some serious problems. Yeah. And that's what most people are dealing with, you know. And
you know, I honestly believe, I'm going to say this again, I said it earlier in the show, but I think one of the biggest dangers that people have is the development of the ego and the inability to eat the humble pie and to have the beginner mindset. And when you don't have that beginner mindset, when you think that you are too good for certain things, and you get given the answer to what it is that is going to give you the biggest leap forward with your training, for a lot of people, it's too much because they perceive it as a regression. They perceive it as, or they don't perceive it as a regression. It is a regression, what I'm about to say, but they perceive that as going backwards rather than going forwards. And they think, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going backwards. And when it comes to something like the pull-up, because when you have poor scapular control, in my experience, it's more often a neuromuscular issue than a lack of strength issue. Like, it's more often the inability to just control the movement properly, so you know the brain isn't sending the right signals to control the muscles to create that good scapular depression and retraction, rather than a lack of strength. And the solution for that is to reduce the load, often for people to pull up where they're putting their feet on the ground. And you can get somebody that can do 10 pull-ups but can't depress their scapula, put their feet on the ground, show them how to do it, and they'll do it. Yeah. Because it's the reduction in load, and they can start to think about it and control it properly. And if you don't go through that process, even if you've been training for 5 or 10 years and you don't have a good chest to bar, and it's really easy to tell if you've got a good pull-up or not. Film yourself. And let's, do you want to bring this video up now?
Just before we do, like, I really just think that your point was so wonderful, and ego is such an important thing. But I think we just got to remember as well that, like, we're working with humans, and like humans are very driven by competition and like kind of testing yourself against yourself or testing yourself against others. So I can totally like relate to that person who wants to come in and really push themselves. But yeah, I think your point about like you've got to make training controlled so that when you have your chance to kind of express your athleticism in whatever way that is, whether it's a individual kind of thing against yourself or a team sport that against other people, that you have that kind of redundancy inbuilt, that you have like leeway and you can really go for it. And so I think it's just so important to like understand that, because people I think fall out of love with training when they go too hard in the everything controlled and they never get to express that.
Yeah,
100%. And that's for me why I love like keeping team sports in there. I love like beach volleyball.
That's what I was going to say.
Rock climbing and surfing. Like I just want to express what I'm, when I'm so controlled in the gym. Like I just want to go out and beat someone or beat myself.
That's what I wanted to bring up. That's what I wanted to bring up, which was the point you made, I think last week on the show. How much you recommend, if people are training, to have a way of expressing what they're training for, so take up a sport, take up a hobby on the weekend, rock climbing, surfing, whatever it is that you can show off a little bit in, that you can have that experience, because the gym is not really, or if you just want a gym, do a powerlifting comp or something like that where you can train for it, or enter CrossFit
or start trying to learn calisthenics in my what I like to do, because I mean my training has evolved so much over the last couple of years since the development of the UMS, and especially since I got this slap tear. It really just reminded me of the importance of just raw strength training. And so when I train now, it's right now, at least at the moment, it's predominantly weightlifting. I'm doing very little calisthenics, but when I express myself, when I want to see how I'm going, it's through calisthenics that I test myself and that I express myself. So whereas for Phil goes out, plays volleyball, goes surfing, things like that.
Well, that's exactly right. That's what calisthenics is for the Unified group, is our way of showing off. But we don't train every day like that, And it's funny that people that come here go, I thought there was going to be a lot more calisthenics in the everyday workout, and we're like, well, you're not ready for that yet. Like you're not ready to show off yet. Let's build some strength. Let's get some flexibility first, because none of those movements are going to be anywhere near possible for your body at this stage,
You keep talking. I'm getting a picture that I want to send Richard to bring up on the screen.
Well, let's just quickly bring up this video from Stephen. Have you got that? Are you able to do that, Richie?
Yeah.
This is an amazing.
So just wait a sec, Brad. I just want to show you guys what we're talking about. Now, this is just by sheer coincidence. Stephen's put this up because it's one of the people that has asked us how is my pull-up looking. Because the program we launched last week is a beginner level pull-up program. It's designed to teach you this sort of scapular control, but also condition the other joints in the body a little bit and get you doing a good form pull-up. You want to bring that up?
Yep, what's up?
So this is an example of a good pull-up. Now, you can easily test yourself whether you've got a good pull-up by filming yourself like this from behind. Now, have a look at if we watch it again.
We missed it.
Just restart it. Watch the scapular control. Watch his shoulder blades depress at the start of the movement. Now,
fully locked elbows,
so a dead hang, and then you can see the scapula depresses, and then he pulls all the way up. Now, this is how to test if you've got a good pull-up or not. See how his chest is touching the bar there? He's pulling his chest right to the bar with scapular depression. Now, if you can't do that, that's not a good pull-up yet. You might be able to do a chin-up. You might be able to get your chin above the bar, but that's what we call a good pull-up. So that's an example of testing, figuring out whether or not you can do this stuff, and whether or not you maybe do need to regress the movement and learn how to control your shoulders a little bit better.
You might find that someone watching on a telephone or something won't be able to see that very well, Richie, because it'll be very small.
Yeah, we'll have to work out how to. Richard's doing a wonderful job at still learning how to use this software, but that's totally fine.
I want other things to pop up that aren't out of my control. Sure.
Yeah. Hey, Richie, can you bring up the picture if you scroll down? It's one of the more recent posts of Erica doing that back lever. So I know that I did it on Saturday. I posted it, so I'm just loading up the page just to have a look. I just want to the picture. Just bring it up on the screen if you can. Make it as big as possible, but let me know when it's up there because I've got my delay here. But if you have a look at this, we're talking about expressing strength versus the way that you train. Erica has never once trained. She trains in my classes, so I'm her instructor. She has never once trained a back lever with me ever, not once. It's not something that we do in the class, but we work on the raw strength to get you there. And in testing week recently, all of our senior members, they like to play around with some calisthenics, see if they can do some stuff they've never done before. And guess what? Perfect straddle back lever. And she's holding that for about 20 seconds like that. So that's an example of expressing yourself versus the way that you train, you know.
Yeah.
So if we bring it back to, because we have been talking about the pull-up masterclass, which is still on sale for another 24 hours for any of those of you that are listening that are wanting to get better at an upper body strength movement. It's this way of, you may be able to do 4, 6, 8, 10 pull-ups, but if you can't do it the way that we just saw Stephen doing it, then you're going to get value of learning how to break the movement down and do it properly.
Yeah, and it's something that, it just goes so far above and beyond just showing off and looking good. It's self-preservation, man. You want to be planning to train for the rest of your life. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. I saw a post by Lane Norton. I follow Lane Norton. I think he's an exceptionally smart fitness professional. Anyone who doesn't follow him, I highly recommend you should. And he did a post saying, there is no, essentially along the lines of, there's no shortcuts. If you want to build a natural physique, then prepare to train for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then get stuck into your training for 10 years and you'll be shocked at how much you transform your body. But if you don't prepare to sort of be on a journey for a while, there's just no shortcut. He sort of goes on saying hacks. Anyone who's trying to sell you hacks or fast routes or this or that, they're charlatans. They're bullshitting you. Now, that's not to say that you can't achieve results in less than 10 years. Yeah. But for the people that you see and aspire to, that are online posting cool videos. I loved Daniel Vadnal, a discussion I had with Daniel Vadnal, who's Fitness FAQs. If you haven't checked him out on YouTube, check him out. He's amazing. Probably one of Australia's best calisthenics. Between him and Simon Ater, they're probably the two best at calisthenics in the country, and they're both well-educated guys. And we had a great conversation because they were both meant to come up and do a series of workshops at Unity Gym until COVID stuffed it all up. And Daniel has unlocked some amazing calisthenics skills lately, but he's so blatantly blunt about his pathway of how to get there. And the best thing is it's all documented. But when he shows himself showing off or testing a movement and failing over and over and over again, he said, the way I trained was just very basic. A lot of chin-ups, a lot of push-ups, a lot of weights in the gym, like just the basic stuff that you see people doing. And then teaching his body how to, transfer that strength into a practical application. It's no different to playing beach volleyball on the weekend, rock climbing, playing football. I used to use boxing as my way to, demonstrate my skill and strength and speed, And it was, it was funny because I used to when I was boxing, and I took my strength training quite seriously for the majority of the last 10 years that I was boxing. I could only spar against people in the weight division above me that were 10 kilos heavier than me, because no one in my weight division except the Australian national champion wanted to spar me because of how hard I could punch. And that was because I could demonstrate the strength I'd developed in the gym, in the boxing ring, and it used to suck because I would go to sparring nights at Mundine's gym in Redfern and just get my head punched in by guys much bigger than me because no one else I wouldn't get sparring otherwise, So anyway, we urge you guys to learn how to do things properly.
Yeah.
And then it's a great idea, and I think Phil's bang on the money here. Take something up that allows you to demonstrate your strength. If you don't want to do a weekend sport, do calisthenics. Learn to do some calisthenics. It's a great way to
or do maybe a weekly CrossFit class or something find if you love CrossFit, like Diana Norbury is coming here saying she loves her CrossFit, use those kind of competitive things as like a fun expression of your thing, but not yeah, you're training.
Yeah. So Diane said a really good comment here. She's saying, I love my CrossFit, but I fully acknowledge what you are saying about the risk of the competitive aspect. I'm glad to say that I am now much wiser after injuring my shoulder due to overuse on an under-strengthened joint. Shoulder injuries for me are the most common injuries I've seen in ex-CrossFitters. We get a lot of them come here with shoulder injuries, and that's the reason why they came, because they couldn't do their CrossFit classes anymore. Their shoulders got so bad. And Diane's saying, as an older participant in my 60s, I've looked for the info to extend my longevity, and I'm so glad to have found the UMS, hoping to get at least a pull-up by the end of the year. Diane, do the pull-up masterclass. I guarantee you that what's the best program that I've seen for teaching somebody how to do a pull-up that can't do pull-ups yet, or that needs to make their technique better and get proper chest to bar pull-ups. And if there was something better out there, then I'd change it and do something different.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the best thing.
And
Yani and
it's a really great place to be, Diane. I freaking love watching CrossFit, and far more than
I get inspired by
Rad and Richard.
Yeah, I get inspired
impressed.
by it and very impressed.
So impressed.
Very impressed
by the elite. I mean, I only get to see the elite level athletes. I don't hang out at CrossFit boxes and see the underdogs and the people that are just grinding it. But I just want people to understand that you demonstrating strength and showing off is very different to training. And if everyone hammered about, I mean, if a professional rugby league player or even NFL player played matches every single day, none of them would survive past 30. Yeah. You know, like they'd all be dead. They'd all have major concussions and injuries just riddled throughout their bodies. And you know, you cannot train in the gym like it's a competition every single day.
It's Stephen Pellegrino, that Mr. Pull Up himself, is saying at 53, I've learned CrossFit about once a week is optimal.
Yeah, there you go. Great. It's like playing your weekend sport. You know, you don't play a game every freaking day, so don't treat the gym like it. You know, it's super important, and it's the same with calisthenics. Calisthenics, when you're testing your strength, you can usually only demonstrate those movements for a few seconds. It's a fleeting moment, and that's nowhere near the amount of volume needed to actually develop strength in the movement. Mm-hmm. So what do? You don't do those movements. You don't show off every day.
Thing,
you know. Yeah.
We could go on forever.
We could.
We go to Erland Kosterson from Sweden.
New on the stream.
On the stream there. So
welcome.
G'day.
Yeah. Welcome.
Simon, Lee, and Greg.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. You know, we had a couple of good questions that I tried to find that I didn't answer in the shows that I did at the last week when you guys were away. I couldn't find them, but I'm going to throw it out there because we were talking about what are we going to do this week. Let us know what you want us to talk about for a week. Let's get some suggestions. Don't comment in this thread because it'll get lost. Do a fresh comment. Say, I would love to hear you guys talk about this.
Yeah. And we'll put up a comment and you guys can... Yeah. We'll put up a post, you guys comment on it.
Yeah, well, I'll do a poll, actually. I'll do that. And whatever wins, whatever gets the most votes, that's what we'll do a week of discussions on. Yep. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Sounds good to me.
Let's throw it out to the audience.
Big shout out to Barbara Galase or Galaki. I don't know how to pronounce your surname, Barbara. I'm sorry. Smashing the 18-minute mobility routine and seeing some great results with her back bridge. That's awesome. Love seeing those progress
and just
videos.
Quickly, Dylan Hustsettler, oh geez, I can't pronounce that, asking a question about a wrist being sprained, and was a bit sad that no one replied to him. Generally we try and have weekends as weekends, but I was hoping to chat about it today in the Physio Monday, but
we can chat about it tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll answer a few questions tomorrow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good stuff, guys. Have a great day. Let us know what you want us to talk about this week, and we will we'll make a series out of it. Take care.
Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, it's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that far.
It's the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.